Mm.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you're coming into the session, we're just going to give a minute or so for everybody to join us before we get started. We had a slight problem last month in that the chat function wasn't visible for you lovely attendees. So if you can see us and hear us and the chat is working, do just pop something in the chat box for us so we know that you're with us and we're all coming through loud and clear. But thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday afternoon to join us for today's session, which I am confident is going to be really informative for everybody. Nothing in the chat box yet, so I'm wondering if we have our chat box challenge. If we do, perhaps somebody can pop something in the Q&A for me, just so I know that we've got chat or we haven't got chat. There you go. Some of this stuff's pouring into Q&A, so that probably answers the question for me. Excellent. So we will get started because we are a minute or so past the hour. We will be done for you about 3:45 this morning, so we'll let you get on your way with a new collection of knowledge and experience that my guest today is going to share with you. So we're talking about bespoke financial reporting today and looking at how we can use bespoke reporting to create a differentiator in terms of giving you an opportunity to offer something different to your clients. And I'm delighted that I'm joined from the US, hence the time of today's webinar, by Scott Miller. Good afternoon, good morning, Scott. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Will. Pleasure to be with you and with all of your guests today. It's a beautiful day in Cincinnati, Ohio, Midwest of the United States. It's about 70 degrees, the sun is shining, and just to remind everybody, we're the home of the Cincinnati Bengals, our American football team who made it to the Super Bowl last year. So there's your sports promo.
Excellent. And Scott, just as a bit of an intro, tell us a bit about who you are and where you've come from. We'll come on to what you're doing now in a moment or so.
Sure, happy to, Will. So I went to university and got an accounting degree. And as soon as I got out of university, I got offered what I thought was a really fantastic job, not in the accounting industry. I went into technology and started implementing ERP systems, fancy term for high-end accounting systems, enterprise resource planning systems, and really just loved the work because I got to see all kinds of different businesses and implementing the systems. And so that launched me into a lifelong career, which has been at the intersection between accounting and finance and technology. And I've had a number of businesses, started out with consulting businesses, implementing ERP systems for distributors, manufacturers, service-based companies, and also have had along the way as well, software businesses that have kind of tagged along with that, developing integrations with different ERP packages and add-on software and so forth. And Scott's Add-ins is the latest creation. It's just been a joy to create this for really, I started creating it for some friends of mine who were having this problem of exporting and importing data from their accounting systems, whether it was Xero or QuickBooks, into an Excel spreadsheet. And why are you doing this? Well, we've got to get these bespoke financial reports out for our clients, or I had a couple of friends that were chief financial officers and they needed really specific reporting for the board of directors. And I said, well, this has got to stop here. And they said, okay, well, the one requirement is we've got to have our Excel because it's the only platform we can use to do exactly what we need to do. So with that, I got the band back together, if you will, and we embraced some really new technology from Microsoft that allows us to do some very interesting things with building add-ins, which we'll just call apps for this conversation today, using the Microsoft technology. And the first platform we embraced was Xero, working with their people and their API. And it's just been a really great experience. And we've got a lot of happy customers now. And I'm quite excited to be with you today and show you what we can do with the add-in and how it can launch you guys into a really profitable and great customer satisfaction experience doing bespoke reporting for your clients.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott. And you touched on a whole bunch of topics that we're going to drill down into there, particularly around the platform and Excel as that core platform. So just for anybody on the call that hasn't joined us before and don't know who I am, my name is Will Farnell. I'm founder of Farnell Clark and co-founder and director at App Advisory Plus. We were very early adopters of technology, and it's really great that I get the chance to spend a good chunk of my time talking to people like Scott now and sharing what's going on in the app technology world. So cracking on, what are we going to talk to? We've done some welcome and introductions there. We're going to talk in a moment about some of the challenges of using off-the-shelf reporting tools, and almost following on from that, why is Excel still so prominent? I remember having a conversation with Gary Turner from Xero a number of years ago now, and we talked about competition, and the view was that actually, whether it's Xero, whether it's QVO, whether it's Sage, the biggest competitor to those cloud accounting tools is Excel. In terms of the number of businesses that still rely heavily on Excel. So we're going to talk about kind of why is it that Excel still has this kind of handle on the market, and how we can use that to our advantage. We're going to talk about some of the use cases for Scott's add-ins in terms of how other firms are using it, how industry clients are using it, what they're doing with it, and so on. I'm going to allow plenty of time for Scott to show you how the add-in works, because I think that's really key. With some of these App of the Month webinars, we kind of leave demos out and we really focus on some of the thinking around the areas, but I think we have to see this. So Scott's going to spend about 15 minutes giving us some insight into how the technology works. And then we're going to talk about kind of how you can use that technology to become a bespoke reporting practice. Think about creating that differentiator. I've got questions at the end, but please do jump in, ask questions at any point, and I'll try and monitor them as best we can. I have a sneaking suspicion there's going to be lots, so we will do what we can to get through them all in the time we've got available. So that's our plan. Scott, do you want to now kind of focus on you kind of talked about the story to Scott's add-ins, but what is it? Why did you create it, and where's it going?
Sure. So really, it's a very simple, easy to use tool, but very, very powerful on the back end. And I think you'll see that today when I do the demonstration. And so I don't know how many people on the call are familiar with add-ins, so I'll just start with the basics. So an add-in is an additional piece of software functionality that gets added into, in this case, your Excel spreadsheet, and allows you to do more things outside of Excel. And what we did was we took the approach that, well, what do people already know how to do in Excel? Well, they know how to use basic functions. Everybody knows that has used Excel knows how to use, say, the sum function. So instead of creating some brand new menu structure that was foreign to everybody, we said, let's just create some additional custom functions for Excel. So if you know how to use Excel, you already know how to use Scott's add-ins. So what you'll see today are some additional custom functions that automatically are part of all of your other existing functions, whether it's equal sum or range or whatever. You'll see about 10 or 12 additional functions we've added into the software. And using those, then you can very easily connect up with your Xero or QuickBooks Online database system and build some really nice financial models, P&Ls, balance sheets, trial balance, cash flows, you name it, using the power of Excel. And it's critical because Excel is this kind of blank canvas that you can paint on and be very creative, which is kind of an unusual thing for accountants. And accountants are usually chided for being creative. Don't be creative, be boring, just do this, right? But it's so much fun. Our users come back to us and say, this is the best part of my day, is getting in there and creating some beautiful, what we call financial art that can satisfy a client and deliver to them a new interpretation of how their business is doing financially.
Excellent. So, in terms of you and I were talking beforehand, Scott, and we talked about the fact that when you first set up Scott's Add-ins, you were kind of looking around at the market, and you saw that there were tools out there in the market that were designed to take data out of Xero, QBO, whatever it is, and allow the user to create dashboards, create financial forecasts. And we kind of saw this very early on with some of the first products that came out and kind of became part of the Xero at that point ecosystem. And there were always still frustrations around it wouldn't quite do this, and it was not always that easy to change the data. I mean, from the customers that come to you as an alternative to these kind of off-the-shelf solutions, what are the things that you hear? What are the challenges that mean that they're saying, oh, we've given all this a go, we're going to go back to Excel, because we always used to be able to do it in Excel, we're now going to go back to Excel? What are you hearing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Will. So what we're hearing is lack of flexibility. So these off-the-shelf dashboarding solutions are great, but you get what you get with them. And so you get whatever the developer of the dashboarding solution thinks you should get. And if you want something that's a little bit different, very hard to do that. So as a result, you've got some type of generic solution that needs to fit across your entire client base if you adopt one of these dashboarding solutions. And you can do that, you can deliver that. But what you're not doing is you're not giving the clients exactly what they need financially to run their business. So it's not a bespoke interpretation of their financial results. The other thing that is problematic, I think, from a accounting firm and an industry standpoint is that if you adopt these off-the-shelf dashboarding solutions, you're really not differentiating yourself in the marketplace, because everybody has the same thing that they're using. So you wouldn't go into a new client meeting and say, well, we're unique because we have this off-the-shelf dashboarding thing, and you'll be able to use that and so forth, because everybody else has the same thing. I mean, when these things first appeared on the scene, yeah, probably was a differentiator, but these days it's not. And with our product, with our add-in, you can immediately showcase your skills and how you're different, how you understand the unique needs of your client's business.
Yep, and that's really interesting, Scott. And I'll kind of just give a response to that in terms of why I think that's really interesting. So I wrote a book in 2018 called The Digital Firm, and it talked about the opportunities for firms to differentiate what they do through technology. And the sessions that I'm running now and talking to accountants and at events is that we are getting to that point where everybody can replicate what we were doing kind of 5-10 years ago, in terms of everyone can access the same technology, everyone can follow similar processes, and actually the differentiator is the human bit. It's the relationships we have with clients, it's the people in our team. Almost what you said there is kind of an extension to that, in terms of it's the client bit, and it's recognizing the individual requirements of the client, and that's where we get the ability to differentiate, because we can get our team meeting the different expectations we have of clients. So I'm really good to hear that there's a similar view there and similar perspective. So in terms of Excel, I mean, we were, and I've been guilty of this as well. So go back 5 years and we were saying, no, you don't want to use Excel. It's all about cloud accounting and everything else. And it was almost like, well, if you're using Excel, you're kind of in the 20th century. Why is it so prevalent? Why are people still now kind of saying, we'll try this other stuff, it hasn't worked, we need to go back to Excel? Is that going to change? I mean, what clearly the opportunities that have been created for you by Microsoft evolving their thinking and the functionality in terms of opening up, I don't know whether it's APIs or whatever, but how's that technology evolving to make sure that Excel remains relevant, and why is it still so popular around the world?
Yeah, well, Excel continues to be extremely popular around the world, because again, it is a blank canvas. You can do anything you want to do with Excel. And so when we talk about bespoke reporting and differentiation, you need a tool that will enable you to customize the unique user experience for that client. One example. So we've got a business in the UK that has, I think, 30 different pubs now. And they use Scott's add-ins to get bespoke financial reporting across all 30 pubs. So if you were to look at their Excel workbook, you'd see 30 different tabs, one for each pub. Then you'd see another tab, which is a consolidated view, another tab that shows graphs of the data between each pub, and they're analyzing them all on a weekly basis. No other tool in the marketplace can do this. And so it's for the unique needs of the clients. And that's why Excel will always exist.
Yeah, and taking that, because the next area topic is really around use cases. So we've got that client you just mentioned there. In terms of the process that they're following to create that data on a monthly basis. I mean, if people think about Excel in the way that I think about Excel and the way I've thought about Excel before we had conversations, is like, oh crikey, there's a lot of risk there in terms of what if the formulas are not right, and what if how much have we got to do in terms of copy and pasting the data, and how do we make sure that it's up to date, and how much time do we have to spend each month making it happen? I know you've got the answer to this, which is why I'm kind of teeing the question up this way. But if that's kind of my mindset in terms of when I stereotypically think of Excel and perhaps look at the challenges of Excel, that's where I start. So how do you kind of overcome that with using an add-in, which is obviously where the difference comes?
Yeah, so I think I agree with you. There's an incredible amount of risk in terms of misrepresenting the financials and so forth. If you are in the business of exporting data every month from your accounting system, importing it into Excel, changing the columns, changing the formulas, doing all that stuff from one month to the next, yeah, you can have some real problems unless you spend a lot of time auditing the results. So we take all of that away, and we build once, create that workbook one time using Scott's add-ins, and then weekly, monthly, quarterly, however often you want to, pull up the workbook and simply recalc it, and it will automatically refresh it with all brand new accounting system data in there. And so you've changed nothing, really. You've just asked the accounting system to refresh it for you, and your work is done.
Yeah, and then it becomes a repeatable. We talked about this as we were talking in the run up to this webinar, that what you get then is a repeatable process, isn't it? It's like you can charge the client a monthly fee to provide this data, and if it is simply a re-click of the button to recalc, then we're delivering huge value for very little input.
You are, yeah, and that's something that's been really interesting to see our accounting firm clients do is create these practices. And I know hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit more about this in detail, but create practices around bespoke reporting where they create the Excel workbook one time, then they charge a flat fee every month to the client for delivering these bespoke financials. Incredible value for the client has been created, but then takes 5 or 10 minutes to pull up the spreadsheet, hit the recalc button, save it, send it off to the client, and you're done. So good margins as well there.
Yeah, and I'm sure when you come into kind of showing the product in a moment, there'll be opportunities to talk about some of the use cases. But I mean, is there anything kind of particularly that you see firms using the add-in for specifically in terms of certain areas or certain problems or solutions they're creating using the add-in?
Yeah, I mean, I could spend an hour probably talking about this question, Will, but so the UK, the pubs use case is fantastic. So we see a lot of people using it for multi-organization, multi-company analysis. So I think about 60% of our users, we have more than one Xero organization or more than one QuickBooks organization they're using the add-in with at the same time. So that's pretty exciting to do the comparisons, consolidations around multi-org. We're seeing a lot of forecasting being done with the add-in as well. We're seeing a lot of graphical analysis being done. So you see these pretty graphs in the dashboarding programs, but they're not always on point with exactly what the client needs. So people are using the graphing capabilities of Excel as well to draw comparisons across different organizations. So really just understanding what the client needs specifically and creating just for that client is where the real value is.
Yeah. And in terms of some of the data that you're able to pull, you can pull budgets, you can pull tracking categories out of Xero and so on as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you bet. Yeah. So lots of comparisons there.
Perfect. So this is the perfect time, then, Scott. I'm going to hand control of the screen over to you. Feel free to grab the share screen and let's take a look. Show us some of the magic.
Yeah. Let me get everything fired up here. It'll take me just a few seconds. Get where I need to be. All right.
And while Scott's doing that, be ready for your questions. Pop them in the Q&A for us, and we will tackle those as we go through the session. I'm very happy to interrupt Scott at any point for any killer questions that anybody's got.
Okay, so that's going over there. That looks good. All right, I think I'm ready here. So share screen.
Oh,
I'm going to share desktop. So if you see some pictures of my family pop up, you'll understand that's why. So
got it.
all right.
All good.
So everybody should be seeing something that looks like an Excel workbook. All good?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, perfect. So if there's one thing I want to convey to everybody today, Will, is that if you know how to use Excel, you know how to use our add-in. We offer Xero training. So there's not these online videos that you have to go through. You could watch a 5-minute video if you wanted to, but there's no training necessary. So you should really be up and running with the add-in in literally 5 or 10 minutes. And very simplistic in terms of user interface, but very powerful on the back end. All right, so let's get in and just start creating some things. So I've got a template here, and this is actually a real world template. I've got a friend that owns a couple of restaurants. The names have been changed to protect the innocent here. But my friend came to me and said, Scott, all I want is a comparison of my sales revenue for my different shops, cost of sales, and I'd like to compare it against budget. And I'd like to look at the different tracking departments that I have, retail versus online, things like that. And I want to compare my cost of sales against specific revenue accounts and so forth. All the things that I cannot do directly out of Xero and I can't do with some type of dashboarding software. So we said, okay, let's just create that, right? And so I'm going to take you through a very simple spreadsheet today. And Will, don't let me forget, at the end, I just want to spend 10 seconds. I'm going to pull up a very sophisticated workbook just to show you the other end of the spectrum in terms of what you can create. Okay.
Yep.
So here we go. So if I just start typing a function in here, just like you would start typing in Excel, maybe equal sum, I'll start typing in equal Scott, and it's going to pull up all of my Scott functions. So here are these custom functions that you now get when you install the add-in. You get the add-in from the Microsoft Store, takes a few seconds to load and install. You connect to your Xero or QuickBooks organization, and you're off and running, okay? And then you see these new functions pop up. So I'm just going to choose the description function here. And what I'm going to do is just have the add-in pull in the description for account code 201. You can see that in cell A17. And my goal here today is not to train you on how to use the add-in, but I think you'll get the impression that you can certainly train yourself very quickly. So it just tells you what the formula requires down below. Once the Scott's org ID, I'm going to come back to that in just a second. And it wants the account code over here. And I'm going to choose this account code, close up the formula. It'll go out to Xero, and it'll come back. After talking to Xero, it'll come back with a description from Xero for account code 201. So now you know how to use Scott's add-in. It's that simple, really. Okay. So now we're going to go out and we're going to grab the balance for this 201 account for maybe 3 years, 2 or 3 years of data here. And bear with me, I know this is not really real world, but I've got a lot of sample data and I always want to make sure I'm going to capture the data I want. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use probably our most used function, which is our scott.gl function, okay? And I'll go ahead and create the function. I'll grab the Scott's org ID. I'll grab that account code. This time, I think I'm going to grab 422 since I know it's got some more data there for me, I think. And so I'm going to grab that guy. I'm going to grab a beginning date range here of transactions. I'm going to grab an ending date range for transactions, close that up. It's going to go out to 0, do some math, come back with the result. So what's happened here? Okay, so I'll walk you through this. So the first thing I did in the function, and I'll just go over here just to walk you through real quick some of the details with another GL function. The first thing I did was I grabbed what's called the Scott's org ID. It references this number up here. That is an org ID that we create when you first connect your organizations to the add-in. And the reason we do this and establish a unique org ID is that so we can deal with multiple Xero or QuickBooks organizations all within the same Excel workbook. And so you could have 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 different organizations all pulling data into the same workbook. So that's our starting point. We always start with that. And you'll notice, as you've seen so far, we've always got the helper text down below here. So it just walks you through what you need to do to create the function. Very simple, very easy to use. And guys, I'll apologize right now. I'm going to go here at warp speed here since Will is going to cut me off at some point. I want to make sure I get everything in here. All right. So I'm going to flash over here to the right side of the screen. We'll call this our task pane. All right. And one thing I'll say here too is that you can always minimize the task pane to recover more real estate here if you want to do that. But I'm going to click on what's called our organizations tab. And you can see I've got 2 connected organizations. These are both Xero organizations that I have connected to the add-in. Lola's Luscious Pies is the one I'm working with right now. There's that org ID that I pasted into my spreadsheet. That's how it knows where to go to get the data. And I've also got the good old Hyde Park Tennis Club, which is just down the street from my house. So I've got those connected. All right, now let's go back here and let's do this. Let's flash over to Xero. Keep your eye on this number right here, this cell that's in yellow here, because what we're going to do is we're going to make a transaction, a manual journal entry in Xero, post that in Xero, then we're going to come back and we're going to recalc our spreadsheet and see the effect of that. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to flash over here to, oh my gosh.
Middle tab there. If you go into Xero.
Yeah, I got a lot on my screen here. There I am. I can see it now. Okay. All right. And I've got to get rid of this over here. Okay. Everybody should see Xero now. Everybody should start feeling very comfortable within the friendly confines of Xero here. So I've got an unposted manual journal entry. Typically, probably not how we would record sales in a business, but that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to credit that 4222 revenue account that we saw in our spreadsheet for $500,000. It's a lot of pies for Lola. It's a good day for Lola. And we're going to just debit AR, and I'm going to post that transaction. So there it goes. That's been posted. So all good there. I'm going to flash back over to my spreadsheet, and I'm going to move this toolbar again. Okay. All right. So that's over there. Everybody should see the spreadsheet back. I've got 2608. Nothing's changed. That's expected. I'm going to go to my functions tab and I'm going to click the recalc button. So when I click recalc, it's going to go out to Xero, see if anything's changed. Well, yep, sure enough, $500,000 in pies have been sold. So it then went ahead and updated this number over here. So it's going to refresh the spreadsheet whenever I recalc with all new Xero data. Could be new journal entries, new invoices, could be I deleted a transaction, could be I adjusted a transaction, doesn't matter. We deal with Xero at the transaction level, and we've got a very powerful back-end database engine that does this very, very quickly. So just to give you some idea of the scale and scope of this, I mean, we have clients that have, I think, 20, 30, 40,000 different cells in some of their spreadsheets with Scott functions in there. And the recalcs are very, very fast. So that's how you use Scott's add-ins. Now, What I'm
Scott,
going
I'm
to do is
just gonna jump in. There's been a quick question in from Noel. I can answer it. And it's, are the add-ins available for QBO as well as Xero? Yes, they are, Noel. Scott's using Xero as the example here, but this works equally as efficiently for QBO as it does for Xero. Isn't that right, Scott?
That is exactly right, Will. You're now on the payroll. You understand the add-in. That's great. Good job. So I go here, you'll see all of the different functions that we've created. And I'll run through these very quickly, but I'll focus more on the Xero one since I think we have a predominantly Xero crowd today. Is that true, Will?
It's probably likely, but there'll be people that are using both. But as long as the principles are the same, then I think that's all good.
Okay, so I'm not gonna demonstrate all these functions. I'm gonna talk about them very quickly, just so you can get an idea about the scope and breadth of the add-in. So our chart function is really a great place to start. Using the chart function then allows you to pull in your entire chart of accounts from Xero and place it in the Excel workbook. Great starting point because you have all the account IDs, the descriptions, the account types. You can build a trial balance very quickly from there. We've looked at our description function. We've looked at our GL. Anything that starts with a Q here means it's a function that is unique to QuickBooks, QBO. So we've got budgets in here, we've got classes, departments, all these things that we, if you're a QuickBooks people, you know all about those things. By pulling in transactions by customer. Then we get down into the range function. Range is wonderful because I can do a consecutive range of accounts. So in this spreadsheet that I have open today, I've got a range where I'm summing up all of my operating expenses through a contiguous account code 6,000 through 6,500. I've got the X budget feature function here. Whoops. All right, let me get my screen back here. Okay, we're back, scrolling through here. I've got X budget, which allows me to pull in budget numbers from Xero. I've got an XNI function, which is really nice. It allows me to populate one cell with the net income figure from the Xero P&L. And why would I ever want to do that? Well, back to Will's comment early on in our conversation today. You know, when you're building these bespoke financials, you always got to make sure you include everything. And so we give you the bottom line net income figure here as a checkpoint, so that you can check against any net income sums that you build in the spreadsheet. Then we've got our extract functions here. In Xero, so many people are using tracking categories these days, but the reporting around tracking categories that comes with Xero is kind of lacking, and that's kind of being generous, I think. So with our extract function, we can pull any tracking categories that we want to into Xero and build a formula around that. And I'm going to show you that really quickly here. I'm going to go over here, and you can see I've got an extract function up here. And all it's doing is taking the same information, account code, date range, and so forth, but then it's asking for the tracking category, which in this case is department. Then it's asking for the tracking option, which is retail in here. And then it's delivering the result of just the Lola Pi's transactions for sales revenue that meets the criteria of tracking code equal department and retail there. And what's fun, just a fun thing I did here, I've got a little drop down box here. If I say, well, okay, that's great, but my friend wanted a little dashboard where he could shift between retail and events. So if I click events there, now it's going to toggle to events, and it's just going to change that number for me. So now I'm just seeing for that tracking category, my graph gets updated, all the kinds of fun stuff you can build for clients using those types of functions. Then we've got a budget function over here, so forth. All right, at this point, I'm listening to myself talk, and I'm talking very fast because I know Will's going to yank me here, but I'm going to show you one more thing very quickly here, and that's drill down. So one important thing to note is that the add-in is built upon Xero transactions, all right, which means I have access to the transactions that make up the sums that I built here. So if I go over to my task pane, there's a little drill that lights up and it turns blue. Hopefully everybody's tracking me here. If I click that, it's going to go out and it's going to show me a little pop-up window, which shows me all the transactions that make up that sum. And as accountants, we trust spreadsheets, we trust all this stuff to a certain extent. But to have a little more comfort, it's really nice to be able to drill down and see the transactions, We'll give you a little copy button here if you want to copy all those to a different place in your spreadsheet. So that's drill down. Okay. All right. How am I doing, Will?
I mean, if we can kind of 4 minutes or so, Scott, if that would be good, that'll give us a chance to wrap up on the other bits.
Perfect. All right. I think we're right on track. I'm going to pull up another spreadsheet. So what I would say is in terms of the spectrum of what you can build, this should look pretty simple to everybody. Yet this is delivering tremendous value to my friend that owns this store. On the other end of the spectrum, you can build some very sophisticated financial models. I'm going to pull one up for you right now. So let's see here.
While you're doing that, Scott, quick question. If you add a new nominal code in Xero, would you have to manually add a new line in Excel and recalc the report? Or how does that work? So if you add a new nominal, what is there an auto update? What's the process?
Yeah, if you add a new nominal, then you are going to have to make sure that's included in your report in Xero, in your workbook, with the exception, Will, if that new nominal is included in a range. All right. So let's say you add a new operating expense and that's already included in one of your range functions, then that range function will automatically pick that up.
Right.
So that
Got it.
makes sense? Good.
Yep.
Good. All right. So what you're seeing here is a 3-model statement that was developed by one of our accounting partners. And this is a very sophisticated, but just so useful statement here. And you can see the sophistication of what you can build using the add-in. I think this one has about 2,000 or 3,000 different Scott functions in it right now. And we have a bunch of these templates available out on our website. This is one of them that you can download to get started if you want to start building these for your clients. But this is a 3-statement model here. And I'll just let you look at this. I'm not going to go into any detail at all on this, but I just wanted to give you a flavor for what you can build with Scott's add-in. So it goes from the very simplistic to the very sophisticated. So there's really no limit to what you can do in terms of being able to add a lot of value to your clients.
And on that, Scott, you had a control tab there. Is that
Yep.
what I expect it would be in terms of it's a cross check or something that allows you to easily cross check the data to Xero?
It is. And what's interesting about this, Will, is that as a business, Scott's add-ins, we haven't created any of that stuff. So we've left it up to our users. We tossed this tool out into the wild, and what came back has just been phenomenal. So what our users have created and the sharing that they've been willing to share some of their templates. So we've got 4 or 5 of these templates out on our website that users can download free of charge, get started, and the community is really starting to build, and it's kind of fun to see what's happening.
It is quite likely that as more people use the tool, build their templates, you're going to get a sharing community, and people are going to say, "Hey, I built this great tool for year to date against budget and all that kind of stuff to save people having to do all that work."
You bet. Yeah, that's exactly where it's going. Very, very gratifying. So I could spend another hour showing you lots of fun stuff, but I think this is good for now, Will. If you're good, we can move on to Q&A or do whatever you want to do. Sound
perfect.
Good?
So that's perfect, Scott. Thank you. If anybody has any other questions, do chuck them into the Q&A, and we'll pick those up in the last kind of 7 or so minutes that we've got to get finished on time. So, Scott, we've talked about the challenges of off the shelf. We've talked about the flexibility of Excel. We've touched on use cases. You've shown us how simplistic it is to build those formulas that, again, when people think, Excel, I can do auto sum, but that's about the limit of my my knowledge. How do people evolve from everything we've talked about, everything you've shown there, into this kind of bespoke reporting practice? What are you seeing from people that are using the tool? How are they using that to differentiate their offer? What are the steps? Where do people start?
Well, the first step is just start using it. All right, take the 15-day free trial, connect one of your clients' Xero or QuickBooks instances to it, and start building something. And think of something that maybe a client has come to you and said, boy, it would really be nice if I just had this in terms of the way the P&L was structured, or a graph or something like that. So just start using the tool, because there isn't a learning curve. You just get in and start using it. So that'd be my first area of advice. Now, in terms of how to really add value to your accounting practice, A couple of tips there. So I'd be looking at number one, if you're not already in the what we call in the States, the fractional CFO business, where you operate as a chief financial officer for maybe multiple clients. This is a fantastic tool to enhance that practice, because typically those businesses that have a need for those types of services are more sophisticated. This gives you an opportunity to really showcase your skills and add tremendous value with bespoke financial reporting for a CFO practice. All right. Second thing is industry specific. So a lot of accounting firms have industry specific focuses. So if your focus is maybe the restaurant industry, then build a template for one of your restaurant clients that can then be saved and then reused and repurposed for other clients as well, with maybe just a few modifications. A third strategy would be to just delight your client with creating something bespoke for them. They're not expecting it, and say, guess what? This month, this is your new interpretation of your financials. It's got a graph, it's got comparisons, it's got all these things that are unique to your business. And this really speaks to how you're doing financially. And then once the client sees that, they're going to say, well, I want this every month. Okay, all right. Then here's the deal. I would encourage people to think about maybe moving out of this hourly billing mindset for a bespoke reporting practice and getting into more of a fixed fee arrangement with clients, because we build this one time and then we pull it up, we recalc it, and we're basically done. So if we charge a fixed fee for this, then our margins are very good. We're delivering tremendous value, and off we go. So those are maybe 3 tips to maybe get started with it. Is that helpful?
Absolutely, that's great. And the beauty of the fact that you build it once and it's there kind of just removes that uncertainty, doesn't it? In terms of from a billing point of view, how do we make this work? How do we know how much time we're going to spend refreshing a forecast and everything else? But once it's there, it's just moving a date range, isn't it? It's kind of that simple.
Yeah, and it's even, you could even use a date of at today or something like that. So you can even get more sophisticated to it there. And the reason we're not doing this today, most people are not doing this today, is because it's been cost prohibitive to do this kind of work for clients. They just wouldn't pay for it. So we take that barrier completely away.
Yeah. Perfect. So as we head towards the end, Scott, we always like to kind of leave some key takeaways here in terms of if you take nothing else away from the session, what do we want you to take away? Scott and I talked about this, and first and foremost, hopefully it's come through. Scott did use the term it's that there's zero training, and that's zero with a Z, not zero with an X. So the point is that this is simple and easy to use. And if you know your way around an Excel spreadsheet, even if you're a bit of an Excel idiot like me, that you don't need training. Scott showed in the demo there that you're prompted for the things you need to pull out, and it's all data that's going to be in the workbook that you're working from anyway. So simple and easy, no training. As I said, don't need to be an expert to use the add-in. It really is self-explanatory. And if you have a look, certainly for the Xero users here, if you have a look on the Xero App Store, I shouldn't be talking about that when we have our own app directory, but the common thread in all of the reviews for Scott's add-in is the level of support that users get from Scott himself. So where you do need support, the support is there. Differentiate your offer in a crowded accounting firm market. We know that it's competitive. It's more competitive now than it's ever been. It's easier for anybody to set up an accounting firm. So think about the things that you can do to differentiate what you do in the market, and being able to offer something different goes a long way. And take everything you've got here to build a bespoke reporting practice on a globally recognized platform. Let's not forget that whatever the perceptions you might have had about Excel before this, and the perceptions that you have about Excel now, it is a globally recognized platform. Investment is huge into the Microsoft suite of products. They're not going anywhere. And whilst there's lots of choice in the market, I still think we're going to see consolidation and so on. But here you're using a well-respected, trusted product that isn't going anywhere. Is that fair, Scott? Anything to add from your perspective on those key takeaways?
No, I think it's a great recap, Will. And the only thing I would add is that we're all so busy, we're doing the taxes, we're doing this and everything. So it's easy not to be proactive and to develop this type of practice because, maybe life's pretty good. All right. But I can tell you, it adds so much value to your clients and differentiates you that you will stand out in a very crowded marketplace. And the second thing is it's fun. And I don't do this all day. I don't do this for a living in terms of doing this for clients, but that's what I hear from our accounting practitioners is that this is fun. This is the best part of my day is when I'm creating something new for clients that's going to delight them. And let's face it, you hand somebody their tax returns. Are they delighted? I'm not so sure that's the word I would use. But you give them a bespoke interpretation of how they're doing in their business. You walk them through. Instantly, they're delighted, and you are repositioned as an expert in their industry for their business. Great client relationship, better client retention.
Yeah, perfect. So Scott, we're going to send the recording to everybody that attended and those that registered because they wanted the recording. We'll provide some follow-up contact information for people that want to know more. Where do people go in the meantime to get some information?
Yeah, that sounds good. And I see we have another question coming in Q&A, Will.
Yeah, I'll let you answer that one, Scott. Sure.
Everybody can see the question here. Thank you, Amanda, for this. So as we're using the live data, can you lock the spreadsheet so it doesn't update the reports for the prior month? So I think, there's a couple of different ways to do that, Amanda. Certainly you could save it as a PDF. That's the foolproof way of doing it. You can disconnect the add-in from the spreadsheet so that it doesn't update. If you're sharing it with a user and you've disconnected it and you're sharing it with somebody else, they will not be able to use the recalc button to refresh it with live data. So there's a few different options there. And what we find is our accounting firms just kind of play with that and figure out what's best for them and their clients.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. So to wrap up, unless we get any other questions in, which we're very happy to answer, email, website address and things, where do people find some basic information? We'll send it anyway, but in case you want to do it now, where do they go?
Yeah, scottsaddins.com. Very easy to find us out there. Or you can jump and explore around the Xero marketplace a little bit and see our listing out there. And I think we might be the only product out there that currently has perfect five-star reviews, so a little bit of a plug there as well.
Perfect, excellent. And so right. We're at time. We're pretty much bang on where we said we're going to be. So firstly, a big thank you to everybody for attending. Hopefully that's given you some food for thought. Do take a look at Scott's website, find some information there. We will follow up with all of the contact details and a recording of the session today, so you can revisit the kind of the key bit in the middle there as the demo that Scott showed us. And big thanks, of course, to you, Scott, for taking time out of your morning to join us. Really informative for me as well to kind of see it in action. So thank you very much for that. Thanks for joining, everybody, and hopefully we'll see some of you on next month's webinar. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and thanks again for joining. Thanks, Scott.
Real pleasure. Thanks, Will. Thanks, everyone.